From the mystical breeze in the morning till the dawning of a new day.
Greetings everyone, and welcome to the Sista Lel show on Bless Radio. That's www.blessradio.org. And tonight we're going to be interviewing Paul Obinna. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Yeah, Paul Obinna. And he's an educator and predominantly in African history and heritage. So before we get into talking to Paul, we're going to play you a couple of tracks. And the first one we're going to play for you tonight is by Black and Molo. It's called Breaking Down Barriers. Here we go.
No matter what I went through, pressure and tribulation, God is sweet, positive vibration, living and loving our lives. Living and loving our
mobile
lives.
iPhone support.
Only way we are gonna make this thing work. Iron sharp iron in the earth. Oh Lord, love is honesty and that we put first. So you are gonna say the truth hurts.
So barriers we break them down. Your love come make this spread it around. Africa we sailing home. Your children come along. Barriers we break them down. Your love come make this spread it around. Together with this wailing song. The white, the red, the black and the brown.
Again. So clinically we are trading spiritually. We rising up the youth from the trenches and the alley. No folly. We got job. Mama Africa's a calling.
Natural royal, back to Mama Africa, back to we roots and we culture. Jah love, surrender. Power of the Trinity I conquer. Break them down. Jah love come make we spread it around. Africa we say. Their children come along, barriers we break them down. Their love come make it spread it around, together with this wedding song. The white, the red, the black and the brown.
The news they feed us on the TV is poison for the brain. All I see completely, fraud is what they claim. So I beg you look deeply, many are lose and few again. So we must collaborate and stop the hate, to climb the lamp and them up on the shade.
So that we as we break them down, their love come make it spread it around. Africa we sailing home, their children come along, barriers we break them down. Their love come make it spread it around, together with this wedding song. The white, the red, the black and the brown. Stepping in a Gideon, stepping out of Babylon.
Leave out the road, leave out the road.
Stepping in a Gideon, stepping out of Babylon.
Need to go home, leave out the road.
Oh, stepping in a Gideon, stepping out of Babylon.
Want to go home, need to go home.
Stepping in a Gideon, stepping out of Babylon.
Leave out the road, leave out the road.
No matter what I went through, pressure and tribulation, Jah gives sweet positive vibration. Living and loving our lives, living and loving our lives.
Only way we are gonna make this thing work. Iron sharp my iron in the earth. Oh Lord, love is honesty and that we put first. So you are gonna say the truth hurts. Yes, all my life, all my life, I've given yes all that is worth. Yes, we always have to give a thanks for the things he provide from this earth. So 2 heads better than 1, 3 better than 2. Treat your neighbors like yourself, and the best you can do.
1, 2, 3 in a holy trinity, forward in a identity. Break them down. Your love come make it spread it around. Africa we sailing home. Their children come along, barriers we break them down. Your love come make it spread it around, together with this wedding song. The white, the red, the black and the brown. Stepping in a Gideon, stepping out of Babylon.
Leave out the road, leave out the road.
Stepping in a Gideon, stepping out of Babylon.
Need to go home, leave out the road.
Oh, stepping in a Gideon, stepping out of Babylon.
It's up to me and you, up to me and you, it's up to me and you, it's up to me.
This one coming up is Mikey General, and it's called Teach the Children. It's going out to Lulu.
What you gonna teach the youth? What you gonna teach the children? Are you gonna tell them the truth? Eh? So what you gonna teach the children? What you gonna teach the youth? Eh? What you gonna teach the children? Are you gonna tell them the truth? Teach them about love, life, liberty, justice and equality for all of humanity, all of humanity. Cause we don't have any option, we have to keep them from corruption. That is mashing up the land, we have to show them the right from wrong. So what you gonna teach the children? What you gonna teach the youth? What you gonna teach the children? Are you gonna tell them the truth? Whoa. What you gonna teach the children? What you gonna teach the youth? What you gonna teach the children? Are you gonna tell them the truth? Set an example by the life you live.
To Bless
This one is an old favourite. It's Sharon Little and Don't Mash Up Creation.
Listen to me, brothers, you to my sisters. He made our creation. Don't want no destruction, oh yeah. So don't mash up creation. Build it up and save our nations. Let me tell you, don't mash up creation. Build it up and save our nations. Man to man remains unjust. You just can't check for who to trust. Searching through the devil's band. You can't find at least one good man. So don't mash up creation. Build it up and save our nations. Let me tell you, don't mash up creation. Build it up and save our nations. Traveling here and traveling there, you meet a lot of strange folks everywhere. Not seeing in and seeing out, you got to hold on firm and try to find out. So don't mash up creation. Build it up and save our nations. Let me tell you, don't mash up creation. Build it up and save our nations. Traveling here and traveling there, you meet a lot of strange folks everywhere. Not seeing in and seeing out, you got to hold on firm and try to find out. So don't mash up creation. Build it up and save our nations. Let me tell you, don't mash up creation. Build it up and save our nations.
We have a caller coming through. 1 second. Greetings.
Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I'm well. And how have you been?
Been very well, thank you.
Hold on there 1 second. I'll just turn you up slightly.
Okay.
Can you come a bit closer to the mic, please, Paul?
It's actually built into the my headphones.
Oh, okay. We'll see if I can just turn you up here. Hello?
Hello?
That's much better.
Okay, that's good.
So tonight for the listeners, we have Paul on the phone with us, and we're going to be talking to him about his journey and what he does. So, greetings. And for those who've just locked on, you're tuned into the Sista Lel show. And tonight we have Paul Obinna, who I met a couple of months ago, I was attending, I attended 2 of his sessions of an event to do with African history and African ancestry. So tell us about your experience, because Paul isn't from this side of town originally. So tell us your experience of growing up outside of London and how that has helped to shape your understanding of like the community or how you've journeyed into teaching.
Okay. Well, I was born in the town of Preston.
Yes.
In 1959.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's in the beautiful place known as Lancashire.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know anything in the UK outside of Watford Gap, that's in the northwest of England.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, say, for instance, those of us who focus on the issues of black people,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that the town of Preston is kind of between Lancaster and Liverpool,
Mm-hmm.
and the significance being if Liverpool was the biggest slave port, followed by Bristol, then London, Lancaster. Many people don't know this, but Lancaster was like another big. It was the fourth biggest slave port in Britain. Oh, sorry, after Glasgow. Sorry, after Glasgow. And it's cotton. Cotton was the main trade there. And so I was raised in a mill town of Blackburn, which is like 12 miles inland from Preston. Further inland, I should say.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I had some interesting times there growing up. Blackburn, I always say, was a very good name for the town because they didn't like black people.
Okay, and, so Blackburn, yeah.
Yeah.
Literally.
So, yeah, I was there until I left for college. Sorry, I was engaged to a sister, very important sister in my life, because I was officially adopted into a white family, and the particular sister who I was with in Preston, she was the one who really, really took me to task on my hygiene, the higher expectations that black people seem to have, or black people have about hygiene and washing up things and rinsing and etc. She really showed me the ropes on that. And then I went to college in Old Sager in Cheshire. And then around about 1986, I went to Manchester. I was in Manchester till 1999.
Okay.
Then I moved to London. I was in London for 13 years working as a consultant. And the lady I was with then, who I married, and then she became a diplomat. We moved out to Brazil in 2013. And then I returned to the UK. Our relationship, I'm afraid, folded. And I returned to the UK after 3.5 years in 2016. Following my mother's death, I went back to Blackburn, and now I'm back in Preston.
Oh, okay,
so,
in Preston.
Nice. So I'm hoping I'm going through somewhat of a rebirth.
Yes, because it's newness that is happening. Yeah. So, after reading your bio, you talked quite a bit about. There was a section on martial arts, and you know, it was another response to this experience, and you became involved in martial arts, and you were instructing from the age of 15 and reaching black belt grades in Korea Kempo and Jitsutu. By the age of 19, wasn't it?
That's right. You see, the game in Blackburn, either you became a comedian or you became a fighter. And I always say that back in the day, I wasn't for making people laugh. It was my first day in school. I was threatened to be stabbed by a Scottish boy when I was 4 years old.
Wow.
Who told me I was black. I'll stab you with my picking knife, you black bee.
Wow.
You know, he didn't actually say bee. He said the proper word. And and so I was like, black? What do you mean by this? Because I didn't have that cultural reference point around me. But I very quickly learned that I learned about my color. They used to. I remember in my first year in school when I was 4, they were reading a book by Helen Bannerman called Little Black Sambo. Wow. And Little Black Sambo. You can get it online now actually.
Oh,
and,
wow.
He was stupid. What you say, stupid.
Yes.
And so I have this. I got nothing to do with him. I didn't want to be like him.
Exactly.
And the level. What was funny, the level of violence that was around, because it was a very tough white working class estate. I was raised in Blackburn. I went to school on, I should say. I lived across town. But my mum sent me back to the school that my brother and sister had been to. and it was, yeah, there was a lot of. I remember Tony Holding smacking a boy on top of the head with a sharp end of a hammer. This is before health and safety.
Wow.
And there's like blood everywhere, you know, and I was like, I was nonplussed because I didn't know what basically blood was like, you know, in that context. I remember Miss Entwistle fainted, but we have to go for Mrs. Bowker, sorry. Yeah, so that was when I was like 5 years old.
Wow.
So there was a lot of that kind of, I don't know, it was rough days, and but it's all I knew, you see.
Yeah. So it really was a survival.
Well, yeah. When I went to junior school, I had a breakdown because I was getting picked on a lot by the older kids. I was a novelty, so they used to nigger hunt me.
Wow.
And so I started. I got a year off when I was in the second year, and then in the third year, when I was let's see, what I would have been about 9 years old. I started fighting. That's when I started fighting, and I got quite good at it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't me. It wasn't my thing. It never fitted well with me.
Okay.
But then, because of the continued aggression that was around, I got too good at it.
Yeah.
And if I'd have been around today, I would have been probably put on some medication and told I was, you know, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But eventually I was stuck into martial arts to focus and control that anger and aggression, so I could hit people legitimately, you know. And I did kung fu when I was 14, 15. Immediately, I had an aptitude for teaching, and even when I was a yellow belt. You see, we used to fight. When we fought bare knuckle.
Oh, really? Wow, okay.
And I remember for my yellow belt grading, I had 5 fights with men. These are I was 15, they were fully developed men.
Yeah.
And I knocked 2 out, but I got hit. I caught a lot of, you know, punches, and I had to go to the hospital afterwards. But one thing I remember one day, my instructor, on a Thursday night, we were split into, there was like 500 people used to attend the classes. And they used to split us into different rooms on a Thursday night. One night, the instructor was called away, and he asked me to cover, you know, he just says, oh, show them this technique quick. Yeah. But then I'd gone on to different techniques and everything, and I was like controlling the room. And when he came back in, it was gone longer than he thought, and he was like, oh, and he let me carry on. Wonderful. And then he started to give me a slot every week.
Oh, fantastic!
And so I started every week. I do the warm up, or I do some techniques or whatever. But I always had an aptitude for teaching, because in actual fact, my brothers and sisters are teachers, married to teachers.
Nice. Okay, so it runs through the family, really.
Yeah, so I wasn't going to be a teacher. I became an engineer. But then it's like the story of Jonah and the whale. There's a responsibility for me, and I was kind of snatched back and brought back into teaching by the age of 21.
So when you made that crossroads decision to move from like engineering and you know the boxing, and you now started to go into teaching.
Yeah.
And what was your experience of teaching in like Manchester, in the inner cities, and with those children in comparison to how it was in Preston?
What I found was that there's a lot of thing of reputation, and there's always this thing about big city people. You know, they're like there's this reputation of like, you know, the more either aggressive or sharper or whatever. But by the time I got to Manchester, I was very disappointed, because I noticed there was from what my expectation was for what I thought I was going to meet. It was nowhere near that kind of high or tough or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But then what happened was I was there after about I arrived in 1986 on a placement in January '86. The school actually started employing me as a supply teacher before I was qualified.
Okay.
Then they created a post for me because I was like a duck to water interacting with the young people, you see.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
And then it was about, I'd say, '86, maybe within 18 months, the drugs started flowing and the guns. And it was like the rise. So I was there from the rise of Dunchester.
Okay. Okay. I remember that term. Very
yeah,
well.
and the bad reputation of Moss Side, which is where one of the sites is in Moss Side, another one is in Victoria Park. Is about maybe just inside a mile away. And we had these two sites, and so yeah, I went through all kinds of realizations and experiences. But I had to adapt. I had to, be thinking on my feet, etc. But one thing with being a fighter, I was never afraid of getting into the mix with people, you see.
Yeah.
So I'd have the arguments. I'd argue with parents. I'd argue with the youths. No, I wouldn't argue with the youths. I'd tell the youths about themselves. But I'd argue with parents. I'd argue with the management of the school, etc. But I was blessed because I come across the works of Malcolm X, and who I identified with because of certain things that happened to me when I was younger, and things I was told at 21 years old. So I kind of know fear. I just got on with what I was there to do. But I used to say, if to teach by any means necessary, you must give it all your heart.
True.
And so I had a commitment. My faith was more of my African traditional spirit. I was raised very strong Christian. My dad was a Plymouth Brethren Reverend. That's my dad who raised me, my stepfather. And my mother was secretary of Missionary Society, the OMF, Overseas Missionary Fellowship. And but she was of the Low Church of England. One of my disciplines is I'd been from the age of 9 years old to 13 years old. I've been a cathedral choir boy in Blackburn.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Which means that it was absolutely is about regularity. So, for instance, where do I start? I'd start on Monday. There was nothing. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we have to do 2 even songs a week. This is after school. Friday night choir practice, Saturday morning choir practice, Sunday morning service and evening service.
So it's a very disciplined. Sorry, it's a very disciplined environment.
Oh yeah, for 6 years. Yeah. And I have to look. I have to fit in my football and different things in between and whatever.
Oh.
And then when I was 13, my voice broke, and I basically became, I'd say, a little bit of a scallywag.
Okay.
Yeah, all the repression and everything. But yeah.
That's fantastic. It's quite an fantastic journey as well. From.
Well, you notice I didn't put the cathedral choir boy thing on my job.
No, you didn't. You kept that one quiet.
Well, people look at me and they find it hard to believe somehow that I could be such a saintly child, but it's true. I was.
So I wanted to ask you were teaching history, but then you became heavily involved in psycho-historical data. So this is quite a huge shift from like the static and the limited curriculum of world history that is taught in schools. So what was it that caused you to address this and start to develop a more honest and a more factual and wider historical teaching expression?
Well, what happened, you see, we realized very quickly that things were wrong with the curriculum and with the achievements of especially African Caribbean children. And so before we got into any of the things, we were talking. As a friend of mine and I, we were looking and started reading up and researching. So, for instance, our first phase was understand the development of racism and race theory.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because of my research at college, and then thanks to one parent, there was a foster parent who gave me the name of Sir Francis Galton, and he was like the missing link of my lineage of race theorists, going back in time for the early Christians who were really disrespecting black people and associating black people with devils and demons, right up until IQ testing with Hans Eysenck. So we started off with that, but then we started to realize as well that the history was all they actually taught was slavery.
Yes.
They only taught that black people were slaves.
Yeah.
And you see in Manchester's coat of arms has got a slave ship on it.
Yeah, true.
They like to talk about it being a cotton trader, but that was just one side of this triangular trade. But then we also realized that by teaching just about slavery, you were limiting the potential of people.
Yes.
So there's a lady called Makeda Elaine, who was back then, Makeda Elaine. She was in London, and she gave a copy of a videotape called "Free Your Mind," and that was from a program called "For the People" by Listervelt Middleton.
Okay.
And he did an interview with Dr. Asa G. Hilliard, who was an educational psychologist, and in Free Your Mind, he was showing the influence of the influence that history could have and the impact it could make on the psychology of people and the sense of self-esteem.
Yes.
Taking them way beyond this idea that they were slaves. And so from that point, around 1990, 1991, we started looking at this. We started looking at these issues, and then a man called Barry Edwards in Manchester used to run conferences and workshops, and then he linked. They started a conference called the Education of the Black Child, which was held between Nottingham, Leicester, and Manchester, and it was supposed to be held twice a year.
Yeah.
And the Manchester one was called, in 1991, was called Through Black Eyes. And I managed to get my way because the energy, the level was very kind of low. So after lunch one day, I asked to do one thing. I'd already devised a horizontal timeline with the information from ACG Hilliard. And
I've got it right.
As a result of what I spoke at the conference, one of the outcomes was that they wanted myself to teach adult classes. Now, Berry didn't act on that, but then we started working on a radio station called Sunset Radio. Some guy, a brother called Pasco, Martel Prince. There's several, Chris Bruno. There were these guys. What they did, they asked. We had a meeting, and it was in the heart of Moss Side at the height of Gunchester.
Yeah.
So we were wondering whether we were going to get in trouble and whatever, but we just said, Joe, let's get down there. And then we had this meeting with about 9 guys, and then I said, well, okay, then we can do the classes. Come to my classroom, and then we did it in the evening. And then pretty soon we had about 90 people attending.
Brilliant.
And so we started those classes. We ran those classes between 1991 and 1998. And then we also started running the Education of the Black Child conferences. We did 5 of those in Manchester as well.
Okay. And
that's what expanded our consciousness out, was contacting the information, the psychology and the history combined.
Yeah.
For instance, there's a book called Introduction to Black Studies by Dr. Malana Karenga. It says 7 areas of black study. Number 1 is history. Number 7 is psychology. But what we realize very quickly is many black people don't want to study their history.
True.
Because they start thinking about slavery and getting upset and whatever. So, and that's the thing of the psychology. So we moved psychology from number 7 to number 1, with history number 2, and I started coining the term psychohistory, not knowing that it was as a French psychologist, sociologist, who started the term off. But then Dr. Amos Wilson, who was one of our great minds from New York, there's a book called The Falsification of African Consciousness, and in that book he actually coined the term psychohistory. But I did it totally independent of him. However, you always say that the spirit, the energy,
it moves
will be
far
around the
reaching.
world, and we'll be doing the same thing.
Exactly. So, tell us a bit more about this lineage timeline that you've produced.
Lineage is a very important thing. Basically, I always say to people that when we're walking round, we are the living, breathing, walking, talking representative of every ancestor who's ever lived before us.
Yes.
And the only reason they existed is so that we can be here now. And then, of course, if you want to see your immortality, you look in the face of your child.
Yes.
So what has happened, because of the limitation of slavery, colonialism, many people now, they'll be saying things like, oh no, we don't look back at the past, we don't look at this, we don't do this, we don't do that,
True,
whatever.
you hear that a lot, yeah.
And in some cases, I always use the 2 greatest laws of Christianity when the Sadducees are looking for Jesus, and they were saying, what are the 2 greatest laws of Moses? And he said that to worship the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Yeah.
To know self means you must know your history.
Yes, true.
That's your personal history, your collective family history, your group history, etc. And then the idea that, for instance, my natural father is Igbo from Nigeria, and you'd actually find Igbo people saying that we did not know God. We did not know God. And I used to laugh. I said, listen, if I shout Chooks, come here. Chukwu is the name for God. Or if it's Chinedom, or Chi, if you say the word Chi, it means creator.
Yes.
So you have all these Igbo names, traditional Igbo names that mean God and creator. But then they said that, we didn't know God. And so Igbos, like there's some Igbo people, they'll say, yes, but we mean Jehovah. And I said, excuse me? I said, in Bible, and so the Bible in Igbo, and they translate it, the name for God is Chukwu. The name for the creator is Chineke. They don't say Jehovah in the book.
No.
And we've known those names for hundreds, thousands of years. So you see, we've been persuaded by European people who came over to colonize, that we don't know anything. And even today, I mean, in the village, they attack their own traditions. They attack for the now. I just say that is a psycho. That in actual fact, I call it satanic. Because if Jesus said to love your neighbor as you love yourself, it means you must love yourself. That means all aspects of you.
Yeah.
When Jesus says worship the Lord your God or thy God, that to me is a universal message to everybody on the planet.
Yes.
To worship your God, your power, that which created you and maintains you. And then love your neighbor as you love yourself. Meaning, if you love yourself, you can pass that love on to other people.
Exactly. Very
That's
true.
a universal message. Jesus Christ is the man.
Exactly.
Or how it gets interpreted is like someone comes along and does a religion called Christianity. and then the next minute, you know, we start fighting with other people and downplaying other people and whatever, and including ourselves. So I'm afraid I take a different spin on it. I don't. I'm a little bit kind of guarded by religion. I've got to say, a little bit guarded by religion.
Yeah, I think many of us who are, I think there's people within the community who really have started to look at the content that they've been just trained in, and
Right.
you know, addressing it, because it's starting to, you know, add questions to them. They're starting to think that doesn't really make sense to me anymore, or that doesn't seem to sit right with that, and oh, the letter J didn't really exist then, and all these sorts of things, and like
Right.
comparing text. So I think people are starting slowly to wake up. There are people who are fully awake, but I think many are, you know, it's the age of awakening, so people are beginning slowly to come forward now. You see more people going to like educational classes within the community to do with African cultural systems and philosophies and, you know, spiritual overstandings.
Right.
So it's good to see these sorts of things happening in the community. Maybe a small drop, but it's there, which is good.
Well, you see, the idea for, say, for instance, I did a presentation down in Greenwich a few weeks ago, and for Black History Month, and there was a brother there, a Yoruba brother, I believe he's Yoruba, and he came to me and he said, I wanted, because there was no questioning after I finished my session. They went on to another speaker rather than they wanted to do some Q&A. But this brother said, I wanted to challenge you. And I said, really? I said, what about? I think we look too much at history.
Oh.
Too much history. And I said, well, I agree totally. He said, huh? I said, yeah, I agree totally. I said, that's why I did the timeline. I said, because once you watch this, I was raised with two books in school. One was called Reading to Some Purpose, and the other one was called Reading for Meaning. And these are when I was in infant school. And I've never forgotten those titles. And so I think that there are certain people playing catch up all the time.
Yeah.
Like what they want to do is keep reading history, and oh yes, and we did this and we did that with it. But then there is another movement starting now who are calling themselves futurists. It goes into like science fiction and whatever, some people.
Yes.
But then we know that the only reality in time is the present.
Yes, absolutely. That's very true.
But you see, me, I try to be as down to earth, as practical as possible. You understand me? Because yes, I gotta say, it don't matter if I was to turn around and say, you know, oh yeah, I know about the Nile Valley. I know what happened like in 5,000. I know about pre-dynastic history. I know that dynastic history and all this business. How does that help me pay my utilities bill this month?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you have to know how to apply it into your life and start to make this a living, breathing thing, rather than just static.
That's the thing. I don't see, I've got to say, I don't see Chinese people, Indian people, whatever, I don't see them walking around with history books under their arm.
No.
For them, it's part of their culture.
Yeah. Yeah, it just is an integral, and in Arabic communities as well.
Yeah. But you see, in the African descent community, we will celebrate almost anybody else's stuff except ourselves.
It's true. It's very true. Well, we've just seen in this Halloween how many of our young ones, youth, you know, even more mature people on their way down to like fireworks and, you know, Guy Fawkes things. And, you know, you do think, well, how does that have a meaning for you? And what it represents isn't very positive.
Well, let me put this spin to you. Is that one thing that in the ancient times there's a guy called R.A. Schwaller de Lubitz, who was an Austrian historian. And thanks to the work of him, I contacted his works through the work of Asa Hilliard, who I told you about before. And Hilliard put forward, he said that in ancient Kemet, or Egypt, there was what they call the ancient Kemetic education system. And there were 5 elements to it. And the first one was unity with nature. Then it was unity between the self and the nation, which Muhammad Ali described as me, we. Then it was, development of social responsibility, development of character, and finally development of spiritual power. If I've got the middle, the third and the fourth the wrong way around, I apologize.
That's okay.
But what happens is the first one, unity with nature. What happened is that many people don't comprehend this time of the year, because we think it's about guy folk, that bonfire night, for instance. Now, bonfire night originally means bone fire night. And what will be happening at this time of year was that in countries like this and across Europe, they will be preparing for the winter months. We're now in autumn. Winter does not begin until the 21st of December. So what they will be doing is preparing, they would be slaughtering the animals and salting away the meat for the winter months. And then from that, the bones would be left. Because remember, they'd be eating almost anything, cow's foot to offal to heart, all these things would be eaten, but they would salt them away. But then what would happen is that they would have to burn the bones. And so you have what's called bonfire night. The bonfires will be up and down. Now, at the time of year, there was the attempt on the life of James the First, the man who had the Bible translated by the Roman Catholics. James was a hardcore Protestant, and they went to try and blow him up. A guy called Robert Catesby led the plot. And so what happened was the celebration of the discovery of the plot and the killing of Guido Fawkes, who was an engineer, used to create tunnels under the walls of towns and cities and blow a hole and breach the walls of the cities. His was the job to actually look after the pyre of explosives that were there under the Parliament building, which is not the one that we've got now. It's what a previous one. But he was discovered. But they celebrate the discovery of the plot at the time of the bonfires. So it is an acknowledgement of the need to be ready for the season. Now, Christmas, the date of Christmas is the first day. The days start to get longer again after the winter equinox. Sorry, the winter equinox. No, sorry, the winter solstice. So the shortest day of the year is the 21st of December. There are 3 days of still, where the days are the same length. On the 25th of December, the sun, S-U-N, is reborn. And the days start to get longer again until you go through to the 21st of March, where you have the spring equinox of 12 hours of day, 12 hours of night. And then what the Christian church did, the Catholic church did, they went to the equinox, they went to the next full moon after the equinox, and then from Pope Victor, the first of 3 African popes, placed the celebration of Easter on the Sunday after the full moon, after the equinox, which is a combination of acknowledgement of the sun and the moon, and that's when they play Easter. Easter Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Easter is named for the goddess Oestre, who is a fertility goddess, which is why female hormones are called estrogen. It's called estrogen.
Yes.
And that's why the symbol of Easter is the egg. Because women have the eggs.
Yes.
Got nothing to do with anybody being crucified.
No.
So you see, unity with nature, originally all of these things were a focus and a dwelling on the natural cycles of the planet. But then the church came along and changed the focus of the people that they call pagan festivals.
When in fact it was really being in harmony with nature, as you're saying.
Well, you see, the name nature is derived from the term netta.
Netta, yes.
The netta, which is the old name for God,
yes.
from Kemet. And that you have the natures of God. So that's why natural accidents today are called acts of God.
Yes. True.
So these dynamics are put forward. If you talk to most standard, the most priests, they know all of this stuff, but there's a choice not to follow it.
Yeah. Well, it's all about control, though, isn't it?
Well, that's the word religion. Religion means again tie, re-lig, or ligature, to tie. So it's about tying people down.
Yes.
And controlling people. That's a thing. Some people say, well, yeah, if you're going to run a society, you need to have forms of social control. So that's one of the things they do.
Yeah, that's true.
So what the lineage timeline is designed for is to expand the consciousness of people outside of the last 400 years, 500 years, which is where the European world has dominated and has tried in many ways to convince everybody that the European world has always dominated, which is a total fabrication.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this is a wonderful timeline that you've produced, and it's, visually very beautiful also, and very easy to navigate through, and it contains a lot of content and a lot of educational information. Where can people purchase this from, if they would like to see it or are interested, for the listeners?
Well, if they were to, if they were to contact Lineage Innovations at gmail.com, if they were to contact that email address, I can get back, and then what we do, we arrange payment, and then I can send them out. Okay. There is a website which should be, I talked to my business manager. He was saying it should be ready by tomorrow, this Saturday.
Oh, fantastic.
But then he's talking about next week now.
Okay.
And he wants to do a launch, and then, there's going to be the Amazon shop available.
Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. So can you say that address for those who didn't catch it the first time, please?
Yeah, it's Lineage, which is line age, Lineage Innovations at gmail.com.
Okay, fantastic. And Paul, I wanted to ask you, you've worked nationally, you've worked internationally for your own companies as an educational consultant, and with one of your key roles being a cultural engagement specialist, and you focused on culture and behaviours. So,
right.
And it took you to schools and different areas. Can you tell us a bit about that experience of working in education in a different environment and, different challenges?
What happened, for instance, when I go back to Manchester now, there's a growing number of guys I used to teach in school that get in contact with me. So, for instance, my first class, the guys who came from my first class are now 45 years old and have their own grandchildren now.
Okay.
And so what they've been doing is telling me, they tell me experiences they've had. Now they're adults and whatever. And I was always very, very conscious that in schooling, education, was going away from teaching, that we didn't teach anymore, we deliver curricula. I went through 13 years in Manchester.
Yeah.
And I know what was undermining much of the achievement was the behavior of the children and the things they were bringing into the classroom. As I gained more experience, I became ruthless at negating the negative behaviors that were going on in my room.
Good.
And so what I did was apply my martial arts theory of the attitude towards the learning environment, which in martial arts is called dojo in Japanese, or uru in Chinese. And so I used to say to the young people, this is not a classroom, this is my temple. And you better pay respect to this domain, to this room. And so I used to have I teach them, I used to have these things called sphere principles, like you could visualize sphere.
Yes.
So SEER, standard entry expectation rituals. So everything that went on in my classroom from before you entered until you left,
yes,
was strategized, was planned.
Fantastic.
I taught them why they could ask me why they have to do these things. I would explain everything up in my room on the wall. I had a chart showing the brain hemispheres and the function of the brain hemispheres. But then the key thing, the difference was that the deepest form of learning you do, because watch this, this is a basic thing I do with everybody. I say, what do you come to school for? And they say, to learn. I say, okay, spell it. And they go, Learn. Learn. I go, okay. I said, now spell it again without the L on the front. And they go, EARN. I said, what does that say? Earn. And I say, what are two things you earn? They say, money. I said, what else? And they go like, and then they say respect. And so when you go into school, you're going to learn, so you can earn money and respect.
Yes.
In actual fact, if you've got respect, usually that will help you earn the money.
Yes.
So then I say to them, spell earn again, but drop the N off. EAR. What does that say? Ear. I say, so look at the word learn. The central word in the word learn is ear. What do you do with your ear? They say, listen. No, what's deeper than listening? And I say, what do you have to do? If you really, and someone will say, I don't know, sir, says here.
Yeah.
So they say, you might listen to me, that's a process, but do you hear what I say?
That's true.
And what do they say in the Caribbean? Those who cannot hear,
don't forget, those don't know. If you don't hear, you feel.
You must feel. But that was taken out. You can't do corporal punishments anymore. Somehow they think it was wrong. Anyway, another debate. But then what would happen then, I'd say to them, what's the deepest form of learning you do? What do you call it when you really, really know something? And they go like, huh? I said, what's the symbol of feelings when you really know something? And they say, someone go, put a T on, sir. I say, yeah, you put the word T on here, it says heart. So the real, when you know something, you learn it off by heart.
Yeah.
And so that level of learning is a lot deeper than the fickle aspects of the human brain.
Yeah.
Now, because I understood this, I started dealing with things about behavior and culture. Different cultures got different meanings, different understandings. So what I did, I became a consultant who was looking at behavior and culture. Because people used to be saying to me, how come you can that class behaves with you and it don't behave with other people? And I'd say, because I'm totally grounded, I'm focused, I know exactly what I want from these young people. I have a high level of respect for them. And I said, I want the best for them. So there's a guy called Eugene Perkins. He talks in terms of a book called Harvesting New Generations. He talks about types of teachers to teach black children, and that's children in general. But he said the only type of teacher who counts is what he calls a social advocate. And a social advocate will do anything to make sure that the children are learning, are getting the benefit from what they pay in taxes, what the parents pay in taxes. So I became this consultant, and I went round. I was working in prisons. I was working in referred PRUs. I was doing sessions that I'd be brought into conferences to work with young people, like in the USA. I worked in West Africa. I did some work in South Africa. You know, I was going all over doing things, doing sessions. And to me, it wasn't work either. I loved it, like it was a vocation.
Yes.
And then I used to joke, those of you who are Christian, and they say, well, what are you doing? I say, I'm about my Father's business. And I was going around there, listen, I was trying to make the blind see. I was trying to make the deaf hear.
Yeah.
I was trying to make those lame excuses. I wanted their lame excuses to go so these people could walk and get mobile.
Yes.
In fact, the term Negro, nigger, means dead.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So I was trying to raise the dead.
Yeah, but it's very true, and it's very the work that you do is very needed. So you know, give thanks for all the work that you've put into the community in educating people and opening up their minds, especially catching them at a development stage as well.
Well, Lilith, what I believe is this, right? I can't teach anybody. The only thing I can do is lay the question mark. I can't. All I can do is lay questions for them. People teach themselves. People commit to things themselves. You see. What's this now? In the function of the brain hemispheres, there's a dialogue goes between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. And the left hemisphere, if you don't talk to your right hemisphere, nothing will happen. Now check this now. This is some people say, P, you're crazy when I thought this. But watch this. The left hemisphere is denoted masculine.
Yeah.
And the right hemisphere is denoted feminine. What is meant to do in our minds, we are meant to have sex. Sex is about creativity. We are meant to, with our masculine mind, because watch this, the word individual, people think means one person. But if you look at the last four letters, it says dual, which means two. If you look at the first two letters of individual, it says in. And we got in, dual, and the mathematical function between is divide. That represents the masculine and the feminine. What happens is we are meant to come up with ideas, and we're meant to actually impregnate ourselves in our right hemispheres, in our emotional self, with these germs of ideas that then grow, and then we are meant to give birth to those ideas. It's meant to be constructive thought.
Yes, absolutely.
But then what we've got at the minute is a diet of junk, of nonsense.
Yeah. It's
Stuff
true.
we get. What's this? The term junk comes from the name for the cargo ship, Chinese cargo ship, that distributed opium along the coastline of China in the 1700s and 1800s.
Look at
That's
that.
why you get the term junkie. And
Look
we
at
have got highly addictive processes going in, and he's shutting down the function, the constructive function of our left hemisphere of our brain. So all that's happening is we're getting programmed with nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with the rise in like also media world, especially how it's gone into the internet,
Right.
and you know we're walking around with these mini computers, and we're constantly feeding. Well, most people are constantly feeding themselves with internet content all the time. It's another form of desensitizing someone.
We just had I just had an experience of a very good friend of mine, a guy who I first saw in a video called Chilling Out. It was a program for the BBC. Everyman was a program, and the main thread of it was a documentary, like a drama documentary, with black actors discussing their elements, their take on consciousness. And there's one guy on there who's as far as I looked at him, I said he's mixed race, clearly mixed race. And then as part of the thread of the story, he tells people that he's, in actual fact, his parents are both white Irish, and his grandparents, as far as you know, are white Irish too. He was born in Kilburn in West London. Now, this week, this has made the national press because certain people have gone and accused him of being, because he's an assistant director of the Talawa Theatre, Black Theatre Company, he's received monies as a trainee director, creative director, I think it is. And so they're saying that this white man is receiving black funds. Now, all I can say, these people are saying this thing, and me, I keep nice and safe because I don't want to disrespect people. But you know, when you get certain people, what happens is now, I call certain people, I call them the KKK. And people said, oh, what, the Ku Klux Klan? I said, no. These are keyboard knowledge kids.
Yes.
They're highly disrespectful. They think they can say anything to anybody and there's no ramification.
Yes.
There's one young lady, I can't remember her name, but she calls herself the Benz Punani. She's an Igbo girl, same tribe as me. She turned around and said and put online that this friend of mine is she called him names for the female genitalia.
Okay.
Now, this is a man I've worked with for 25 years as a colleague. I met him 3 years after I saw this Chilling Out thing. When I just turned around, when I saw the Chilling Out thing, and I was going, oh, he's a mixed race brother. Then he said this thing. I thought, oh, he's a throwback. You see, I know the term throwback. It means that where you have these things, if you go and study the one drop rule in the USA, they say if you've got one drop of black blood, you are black. This is why when Barack Obama became president of the United States, and they said he's the first black president, there's a book by Joel Augustus Rogers from the 1950s, which is called The 5 Black Presidents. And it calls the names of 5 presidents in the USA who had the one drop, including Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, okay.
So these 5 black presidents. So me, I'm looking at this thing, and so when I see it, because I've gone and schooled myself, I didn't go I wasn't relying on college or university or whatever. I went in a school that found this information out. And back when I found this out, it wasn't going online on the internet and looking at it. I had to go to libraries, bookshops, and then another thing I actually did, at least, is this. I actually went and phone called the people who wrote the books. I've had people over the watch this, since I was in Brazil for 3.5 years. I came back 2 years ago. I've had people telling me about content of certain books. And I just, you see me, I'm nearly 60. I can be cool now. I can sit down and go like, yeah, because I've had life and, you know, I know this, know that. People coming to me and telling me this, telling me that, like I'm dumb, like I don't know, like a this, that, reason, And they tell me a book, and I say, yeah, I was actually with him in 1996. And we were actually talking about this thing you're telling me. So a lot of these people that they're talking about, like they've been reading book online or been watching something, I actually know them, and several of them, I'm pleased to call them my friends, you know, or colleagues or whatever. But there's a damn arrogance come across. An arrogance, I can't believe, just bad manners. Really bad manners.
It's true.
And you see, I can stand bad people. I know many bad people who I work in prison over many years. I don't mind bad people, but I tell you what, I can't stand bad-mannered people.
Yes. It's unnecessary.
This young girl, she needs to go back to Niger. She needs to go to Nigeria, right? And let her talk that way in Nigeria to some elder.
Oh, it wouldn't be possible. Not possible.
Disgusting. She's disgusting. But you see, this is it. All I'm saying is manners.
Yes. It's about it's forgetting your culture also, because you know there's certain things that are not allowed back home. So why would you do them just because you've got more freedom here?
All they want to do is get famous. They want to be seen. They want to be noted for something. And you know, I'm a big believer in this. You see, let me tell you this. Let me tell you about a guy called Johnny McGee. I tell you this is what you know. Like I said to you, I try and be down to earth.
Yeah.
When I was growing up in Blackburn, by the time I reached about 13 years old, and I left the choir, I started going out into pubs. And like I said, violence was always around. There's a lot of fighting went on. By the time I was 16 and I was out drinking, I was going around with the guys. We used to be fighting the police hand to hand and things like that. It was a mad summer of 1975. At the time I was meant to be doing my revision, I was out. All I was doing was martial arts training and drinking and fighting in pubs. Right? It's not a thing I'm proud of, but it's a thing that it taught me a lot about a different side of life.
Yes.
Right? So remember, this is Blackburn. In the town of Blackburn, which back then was about 155,000 people, on the road, guys out on the road who were either black or mixed race, there's about 8 of us.
Oh, that's a little bit like in the 80s and 90s, especially in Manchester, Stockport, Cheshire, all these areas. It was very much like that, where you definitely were sticking out like a sore thumb, because there was almost nobody else when you're walking down a street that looked like you. When you saw somebody, you were so glad to see another person, because I too was raised in the north.
That's right. Well, you see, let me tell you, because I told you about a guy called Johnny McGee. Johnny McGee was a guy, I think he was like a featherweight boxer, right? And he was a little guy, short guy, you know, broken nose and all of this business. And he was a drinker. He was a drunkard. So what happened was, as the guys were getting older, the guys who wanted to test themselves, they go and fight Johnny, innit? And so what happened was Johnny, from Thursday night to Sunday night, would be drunk. So they'd get a win on him. They beat him up. Yeah?
Yeah.
But you know what? The next morning, Johnny was at their front door.
Ooh.
He'd be waiting outside. He'd be sat on the wall, or he'd be sat at the corner of the street, something like that, waiting for them for round 2.
Oof.
So when you fought Johnny McGee, you had the first round where you took advantage. But then the second round, you better know something's coming for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
This taught me something, is what we say, about and to. And let me tell you, that with these guys who's out there now, carrying on with their mouth, carrying on and cussing people down and carrying on about themselves, what they should be doing is what they're willing to say about somebody, they should be willing to go and say it to them.
It's true.
Now, what happens is this: when you get to that realm, there's a guy called Curtis Woodhouse. Watch this now. Curtis Woodhouse was a professional footballer. Then he became a professional boxer. And Curtis Woodhouse, there was a guy who was trash talking him. You know what do you call them guys? Trolling him. Yeah? He was trolling him, putting all kinds of stuff online about him.
Wow.
He was this, he was that, he was no good.
It's disrespectful.
Then what? Then guess what happened? Curtis was given his address.
Oh.
Curtis then went online and he said, yeah, I'm coming down to his house. I know where he lives. He lives on this street. Oh my gosh, well, isn't that a different kettle of fish?
Oh.
Saying things about people is not like saying things to people.
Yeah. So
and that's one of the differences. Now watch this. Could you imagine that these so-called, what I call Negroes, who pulled my friend out, right, actually went to the very newspapers who are denoted, are infamous for putting negative portrayals of black people, and then they went to castigate my friend and say that he could not call himself black because he has no black or African genes. He has no black genes.
Gosh.
Now watch this now. People, this is how dumb these people are. Let me say this to you now, because I got friends. I went to one friend, and they are an ex-police officer, police detective. I got pictures of my friend as a child, as an older child, as a teenager, as a young man, and now. And I asked them, I said, if this child went missing, if this boy did something wrong, if this young man, you were looking for him for something, what would you describe him as? And this police detective said, I see three. Light skin black.
You see?
But these idiots want to try and make, because all it is, they are masking a nasty piece they're masking a nasty piece of aggression. You want to see the state of you? My son was upset. His mother's not good tonight.
Can you move a bit closer to the mic, please? I just lost your last word.
Oh, sorry. I said his mother is not well tonight. His mother's in her 80s.
Oh, sorry to hear.
And she's not well tonight. No, 70s. She's not well tonight.
Oh.
But you see, they don't care. They think they have a principle. And this is the thing that it really has annoyed. As you can tell, it's got my goat.
Absolutely.
And this brother, let me say this. He has worked with some of the top African-centered speakers, researchers, writers, historians, psychologists. all of them, all of them have accepted him, and they all know his background.
I think it's just some people are quite ignorant when it comes to people being of a, quite fair. I think that some people will be in complexion. Some people will have quite narrow-minded and overstanding of the scope of blackness. And they don't. They always misjudge. Not always, but many people do speak of how misjudged they are because of how they look, and yet they get the same treatment.
There's a film called Sankofa. Sankofa came out 20-something years ago. It's done by an Ethiopian guy called Haile Jameri. And what happened was, I can remember in the story, there's a black sister on it. This is set on a plantation, and she gets raped by the white overseer, I think it is, and she has a son called Joe. And Joe has got red hair, green eyes, and light skin. And I remember watching this thing in Portobello Road at a cinema in Portobello Road, and a special screening. And I always remember that these two sisters that were sat in front of me, sat behind me. And I think Joe kills his mother. And they start calling him yellow bastard, the fucking half-breed freak, and all this business. And I just turned around to him and said, yeah, he's the same color as Malcolm X.
Yeah.
And you see, what happens is this. I get this thing all the time because my mother's English, my father's Igbo. Yeah, but then what happens is, and I always say this, I'm very, very comfortable talking to almost anybody. I know, for instance, I did a session in Greenwich, I was the only one dressed in traditional clothes. I put one of my Igbo business suits on. And when I was there, I started laughing because that was the audience, and I said, so you see me now. I said, I go to Igbo land. I said, I'm Onyocha, which means white man. And the Igbos in the room start laughing. And then I said, I said in Yoruba, they say, Oyinbo, I'm Oyinbo, I'm a white man. I go to Ghana, I say, Obroni Koko, white man. Yeah?
Yeah.
So that's a change of context.
Very much,
Yeah. So I know when I go in that context. So I go to South Africa, I'm colored. I go to the Caribbean, depending on how much sun I've got, I'm either yellow or red. I go to Brazil, they call me mulatto claro. Mulatto claro means clear, light skin, mulatto, as in mixed race, as in mule.
Yeah, they have quite a lot of terminologies for different types of mixes, also different, different cultural mixes, different race mixes of people, because they have such a wide scope of, you can be Japanese with Swedish, anything, it's very wide there.
That's in Brazil. Yeah. You've got about 27 different ones.
Yeah.
Then in the USA, I could be Puerto Rican, Latino, I could be light skin black, it could be almost anything out there. Yeah. Now I know this. And then if you go into those different, for instance, when I was out in Brazil, my friend who I said he's gone through with this thing recently, his girl, a friend of his, came out, a sister, she came out to stay with me and my wife. And I said, you got to tell him to come to Brazil, because there's an expression, like for instance, there was a good brother who's a writer, who was criticizing my friend, calling him a white man, appropriating black thing. This brother writes about Brazil, about a Muslim. He has a really good book about, and it's a piece of information about Muslims in Salvador who led a rebellion, right? Well, I said to this brother, I sent him a message on Facebook. I said, my brother, as an expert on Brazilian history, you must know about the term "a foot in the kitchen," because they say they have a 3-level thing in Brazil. They say a white woman to marry, a black woman in the kitchen, and a mulata to have sex with. So they say if you've got a foot in the kitchen, it means you've got black blood.
Okay.
And that means you could, as you probably get, there's a term. I know my friend doesn't like this term, but it's called atavism. Atavism, ATAVISM, atavism.
Atavism.
Yeah. Even I was laughing with him the other day because I got one of those Google. You know, you ask Google and it comes up with things. You know, and I said, "Hey Google, what does atavism mean?" And it came out with a definition. Right? So listen. This is. I'm going to get you the definition right now. You see?
Yes.
Because it actually means a reversion to an earlier ancestral characteristic. And that's what a throwback is.
Okay. Well,
So,
I mean, the word throwback is quite a harsh word.
Yeah, but you see, because I was born in 1959. I came through before political correctness. I came through before, people said, "Oh, you're calling me this, you're calling me that, you're taking away my human rights." So no, I had to fight.
Yeah.
You understand me? I fought. If I didn't like it, I had to fight for it. You have to reason with it. You have to fight with it. People called a spade back in the day.
But I think up north it's very much like that because people are very upfront, and there's a lot more PC behaviour going on in the south. Whilst in the north, I think, like you said, a spade is a spade up there. And even if you're in the Midlands, they're more forthright with how they communicate with each other. So
you got to remember the Midlands is in Birmingham is where they made the change for slavery. And I always say, out of one place in the country, I say people is tough and hardcore. Birmingham Yardies, man. Birmingham Jamaicans.
Yeah, definitely.
I think out of everybody, for me, out of everybody I've met, Birmingham Jamaicans seem to have an edge on a lot of people. But that's just me. That's my assessment from my travels and whatever.
Yeah, I think they in the Midlands they just have they really do seem to have no fear. They have an edge about them, and there's no fear with it.
But you see another thing that's happening now. Leicester, Nottingham, those Peterborough, places like that, big mixed race population coming through. And I was laughing because I look at the football Premier League, look at the lower leagues as well. You got a whole heap of mixed race
children,
players coming through. Yeah.
A lot.
So you see all of this stuff that guys are hanging on to now. And I got to go. I'm sorry, I got to go back to my friend again, because over the last quarter of a century, 25 years, I've worked with this brother. In actual fact, when I used to work with a certain bracket of age group, he'd be my first person. Being a drama specialist, he would be the person that I would always approach him. I'd always come to work with him first. And it was nothing to do with skin color or his shade. It was everything to do with his ability and his commitment to working with these groups. And me personally, I've got no doubt whatsoever. So then finding these people turning around and saying this thing, he can't say all this thing. I can say it. I just find it disgusting. And what's this? There was an old there's an old drink advert come from Martini, and it says anytime, any place, anywhere. There's a wonderful world you can share. It's a bright taste. It's the right taste. It's Martini. I'm willing to meet any of these people anytime and have the reasoning with them. But what I want them to do is pull out their record of service for the black community. One brother actually said to me that, oh, this guy was helping the black community. I'm going like helping. He's a white guy helping the black community because he's read some headline and reduced this guy's life to a headline.
Just looked at him ignorantly, really. They didn't really look at him. Like you said, people hear but they don't listen. They also see but they don't look.
This is it. Well, we see. I use it. I say you listen but don't hear. You look but don't see. Yeah. And what's actually happened now? People, it's like this opinionated attitude. And I'll say, I'm going off the guy's record. The guy has, what's this? He comes through. He has had the experience of being black. And when you see pictures of him, and when you see everything, that's it. The guy he looks like these days most is that brilliant bloody musician Goldie. Him and Goldie, they look similar.
And you can't mistake that Goldie. You'd have to be like not really. You have to be looking through some sunglasses not to see that Goldie is actually a black man.
Yeah, but you see, this is the whole thing. This is where look, there's a film called Barbershop, and with Ice Cube.
Yes.
And Cedric the Entertainer plays this old. He plays the old. What do you call it? He plays an old barber.
Yeah.
And he has no kind of restrictions on what he says.
Yes. Yeah.
And then in Barbershop 2, he starts off going on about these guys, mixed dual heritage, mixed race guys. And are they black or not? And I said, so if they do something crazy, they become, it's their white side doing that.
Yeah. You hear that.
No, yeah, that goes on. So, for instance, I can remember I was in Birmingham, Pan-African Congress movement. They had a session on miscegenation. Miscegenation is the mixing of the races. So, for instance, Brazil, their response to slavery, the end of slavery, was to do a miscegenation policy where they got poor white people and the blacks to mix to create the massive 46% or more population now in Brazil, which is so-called what they still call mulatto. Yeah. Of different groups. Now, what happened is this sister, the sister who did the session, it was a very well-researched session, and her point was that she said the reason that many black people have relationships with white people. This is what she said. Hello, are you there?
Yeah, I'm listening. So the reason why they have a relationship.
She said this was her argument. This is not my argument. This is the argument. This is going back to around about 1995, I think it was. Yeah. So she said this miscegenation, the reason that black people go with white people is because they don't know themselves. They don't have self-love, et cetera, right? This is what she was saying. So she then gave 12 examples of achievements by black people. And she said if black people had more idea about these achievements, they would have more self-love, self-respect, self-dignity. And so therefore, they'd be less likely to want to marry outside their race or be with anybody outside their race, right? I managed to get the last comment of the night. I got the last contribution of the night, and I put my hand up, and I said, "Sister, I want to applaud you for your presentation." I said, "It's well researched and well presented." I said, "I applaud you for that." I said, "But I'm a product of miscegenation." but I don't think I'm missing anything. And I said, I don't know if you realize this, but out of your 12 black achievements, 7 of them were by mixed race people. The so-called products of miscegenation you're decrying. And she said, really? So I named them. I said, go check them out. And I said, and then this is what I said. I said, if being full black is where it's at, do twice as much work as me. We'll get free overnight. And certain guys in the room, like I said, they're hardcore, and they were like, ugh, ugh. They didn't like it. You understand me? They didn't like what I said. But you see, I don't give a monkey's.
But I think, do you not think that they're saying they are fully aware of themselves, but they have some sort of reluctance or fear to step forward and take the bull by the horns and actually try to make a change in society by educating people correctly?
Well, you see, one of the key things is the whole race game is a European game.
Yes.
And so once you put these things forward, you're playing that game. You're not playing the black game. I was taught this by Chief Adelicom, who was one of the leading priests. He's a Yoruba priest. He's like a cardinal in Yoruba tradition. He came to my house. He paid massive homage and respect to my mother. So much. He said, Mr. Obinna, I need to meet your mother.
Yes.
And I'm going, but she's a white woman, Baba. He said, no, I must meet your mother. And so eventually I brought him to my mother. When we were leaving, all I want to say to you is this: he paid the maximum respect to my mother.
That's nice.
My mouth dropped open, and it took me from Blackburn to Liverpool before I could ask him, Baba, why did you just do that? And all he said to me was this: is your mother now.
Oh, wonderful. You see?
Because you see, by African tradition, you pay respect to the lineage. And that goes back into ancient African tradition, got the days of Sarah, etc. But you see, because of the game that we've been dragged through and what we've been influenced by, we forget certain human conditions. This is why I always say every day is Mother's Day. Sorry, every birthday is Mother's Day.
Yeah, true. True.
So if a mother has 4 children, she should have 4 Mother's Day.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely.
But you see, what happens is that you cannot get out across to certain people. Now, what was interesting to me, these people, what they were saying about my friend.
Yes.
They said that they actually called him a liar by comparing him to this crazy woman, this woman in the USA. You know, the one who claimed to be black.
Oh yes, that lady. Yes, that lady, and
so,
her parents.
So they were saying, that's right. So they were saying that this guy was turning round, and that my friend was claiming to be black the same way this woman was claiming to be black.
Okay,
so of course these numbskulls, without understanding any history behind my friend, called him a liar and said that he was a thief by taking money. They defamed his character.
When they don't even know what he really is, like heritage-wise.
And yet him from 1990, it was declared on a BBC documentary. It's been the content of at least two plays that he's been in. And it's been a thing of public note. And so I was laughing at this because 2 years ago, on his birthday, because I've always taught this thing that your birthday is Mother's Day, he in actual fact posted posted online on his Facebook page his history, his parentage, the things he's been through, to the point 2 years ago.
Wow.
Well, what is 1 year and 11 months? Because his birthday is the 29th. It was the 29th of November, 2016. And yet these people turned round and called him a liar.
But he must know his own, he must know who he is. You know, it's I think it's once you've seen, because of what the lady did, everyone's making an assumption, and they've wrongly accused him, because clearly from what you're saying, he absolutely is has the rights to do what he's doing and getting those funds, because he's also part of the culture that he's talking about.
Well, you see, and he has been, like I said to you, he has been bona fide, stalwart, whatever, and that's it. So you see him, you look at him, he looks mixed race.
Yeah.
Today, he's got older, clean shaven, head shaven, looks like Goldie. You're on to this
And you
thing.
can't get confused if he looks like Goldie. There's no way to be confused.
No, but watch this. What I'm putting to you is a real simple thing. These people who started writing this thing, there were 5. Listen to this.
Yeah.
I've got a friend who is a researcher. There were five journalists who were the ones who started this whole thing off about my friend. Right? 5 of them started this thing off. And then what happened was, the 6th writer is in actual fact, hold on, let me do this. Let me do this, because it's like I'm spouting off. Watch this. First one, Sunday Times, the Sunday Times, Grant Tucker.
What do they
then
call
Terry Ann Williams. This is a white writer. Then the second one, Terry Ann Williams, was writing. She put a thing on Twitter, right? But with a mail online, the Daily Mail, the Sunday Times, and the Daily Mail. Then Gemma Mullin was writing for, let's see, the Sun. Let me say those again. The Times, the Daily Mail, the Sun, Gemma Mullin. Then Asher McShane started to write for the Evening Standard, right? Then the 5th one, May Bowman, wrote for the Independent. And then the first black and minority ethnic person to pick up on this, looking for mileage, Paula Akpan. And that was an article for the Independent.
Wow.
These people,
terrible.
that was the first black person. 5 newspapers, 4 of which have got a terrible record on reporting on black people. And then this black person writes an article in support of that. I just aghast. I'm aghast.
Completely shameless. I mean, why?
And you know, sis, because I know this brother, he has come into situations with me that have been quite dangerous. Working with people who are quite dangerous. He's been there by my side, bona fide.
Wow.
And it made me think. I've been at this game like 35 years, working in black community and working and spreading this information and doing this, doing that.
Yes.
And it's for the first time, I just felt, there's nothing going to stop me doing it. There's nothing going to stop me from doing that role. But I'll tell you something.
No,
I was so disappointed in this so-called caliber of so-called black people that we got coming through. If that's what they're going to do, is turn on people who have actually over, because they mentioned some money. They mentioned some money. You know, so the funny thing is, they mentioned 400,000, right? 400,000 pounds. Let me ask you this: do you know how much it costs to keep a terrorist in prison now?
No, actually. No.
Yeah. Do you know how much it costs?
No, I don't actually. How much is it?
£180,000.
Wow.
Oh, I'm sorry, and that was around about 5 years ago.
So it's a very good
So,
business.
so for the amount of money that they're arguing over and putting this down, and that's not going to him. It's only 1/4 was actually allocated to Talawa.
Mm-hmm.
For that amount of money, you could keep 2 terrorists in prison for 1 year.
They're just trying to discredit the good work that he's done. So by discrediting him and putting a question mark on his heritage, they've undermined what he's done, or they've attempted to undermine his work. And this is what is a pattern of behavior that they do when they feel a little bit uneasy at the mirror and the truth that's been told. It's nothing but beneficial to members of your society to actually give them the space to actually learn the truth of their own history, because it's allowed to other groups in other communities. So I think it's very underhanded and very deceptive to keep this imbalance going, because it can't last forever.
You see, sister, what I say is this, right? They all, was it saying, know the truth?
Yes.
And the truth sets you free.
Exactly.
Now, the thing is this. We go so fast these days. Fast to condemn.
Mm-hmm.
Fast to think that we know.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of being quiet and
Yes.
researching.
Mm-hmm.
And checking some things out.
It's true.
And
Very
do
true.
you know something? Do you know something was really, 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 really funny?
Mm.
Because I know this. I got one of my friends. I got a really good friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to say to you that we're of age.
Mm-hmm.
And we were battlers. We're fighters.
Mm-hmm.
There's part of me I've put away, as in Paul's gospel, and it says I put away childish things.
Mm-hmm.
I had to equate my fighting with the anger and frustration from my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to grow up through all kinds of stuff. If I give you my biography of what I've been through,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not as bad as some people, of course. I'm just saying what I've been through.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, my friend, he's not a fighter.
Mm-hmm.
He's a gentle soul. He tries to help. He tries to help people.
Help people, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
this information is important.
And then, so I feel very upset by that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So all the things that I've done, and I got told online. This is online.
Mm-hmm.
This one guy, and you know something, I can't find his name. I wish I could call his name, but he said to me, I don't know if he thought I was white or I thought he whatever. He said to me, yeah, because of my defending my friend.
Mm-hmm.
He said to me that I have never experienced prejudice. I will never experience racism, and that my comments make me appear. Make me appear like stupid or ridiculous is what he said.
How?
This is what he said to me.
Yeah. Okay.
This is me.
Mm-hmm.
Who I said to him very carefully. I said, well, I didn't get angry. I just said to him, I said I was raised in Blackburn. I know myself very much for my color, because my first day in school I was threatened to be stabbed, like I told you.
Mm-hmm.
I said that I became a martial artist because I had to learn to fight.
Mm-hmm.
When I was at college, I challenged my tutors with the history of the development of race and racism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And this, remember, I had nobody to make reference to. I was having to trailblaze with it.
Yes. Yes.
The role of racism education, using the work of a white guy called Peter Fryer.
Mm-hmm.
In his book Stay in
Peter.
Power,
Yes.
he talks about the 3 stages of racism, the development of racism.
Absolutely.
And then I started to work in Mossad.
Mm-hmm.
I asked, what's this? I was on a first for my teaching practice. And I asked for my final teaching practice to be in Mosside. I requested the placement.
Mm-hmm.
And I got told, if I go there, I'll lose the first.
Yeah.
And I just said, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I went there to Mosside in Manchester, like when it became to Gunchester.
Yeah.
And then from 1989 to 1993, started working in Garth Prison.
How was that?
At first, well, at first it was a Toxteth referral in the main from Liverpool. Then it became a Mosside referral. These were guys from my community. And so if I have said something wrong to them, guess what?
It would just come back, wouldn't it?
When one of them, one of the guys moved out to, he went to a prison over in York called Full Sutton Prison. I started doing sessions over there. That was a Category A prison. Glass is Category B, so it's less cat than Full Sutton Prison Category A. I started going over there. There's a BNP guy who said that if I started coming down there, if I came down there again, I was going to get shanked. I was going to get stabbed.
Okay, well.
So I used to have to get up in the morning, do my rituals, do my focus, my protection rituals, and all of the things to drive down to there. But now, we said, how is it? I'll say this to you. I was shown more love, more respect, more support from those guys who've done some of the worst killings, rapes, whatever in our communities, right? Than I've got from these stupid ass people now.
Yeah,
more
absolutely.
manners, more respect.
And they valued what you were doing as well.
Yeah,
Appreciation.
but think about this. I get some stupid boy telling me that I have never suffered racism, I have never suffered or is likely to suffer oppression.
Why? Just because you've got
when
fairer
what's this-
skin? Why? You're still melanated like the rest of it. You're a melanated being. I'm a melanated being. It's not your. It's racism isn't about the content of melanin you've got. It's just that you need to have it, and that's it.
But sis, I put myself in the firing line there. Listen, if this guy had got one of his friends, another racist, to shank me, and what are they going to do? Give him more time? These guys are lifers.
Yeah.
So I'm turning around and I'm going on to that. I was doing that for 6 years voluntarily.
Oh wow.
I won't be.
Wow.
They used to pay me petrol money. In actual fact, they used to put all my free lessons for a couple of years. They put all my free lessons on one day, so I could go down and teach in the prison. But it meant I was teaching solidly all the rest of the time.
Yeah.
And then I get told this guy, this KKK keyboard knowing kid turns around and starts telling me that I'm this and I'm that without knowing who I am or what I am or whatever. Even investigating who the hell are you to say this thing?
It's ignorance, though.
But you see, I'm not saying anything about him. I'm saying about my friend who I know is bona fide. I've worked for 25 years, but this guy, in his opinion, he's saying that he's this and that and whatever. These people make me do a joke.
Yeah.
And that's what we've become now. Little headline grabbing. They're just like, what do you call them people? They're just looking to become. They want to be famous. Something for being famous or being. I don't get it, man.
Yeah, it's the ego, the ones that love their egos to be brushed. So, oh, look at me. They crave that attention. So it's those type who are not happy within themselves, but they're out there looking, grabbing onto things, and anything that can get them in a little bit of limelight, regardless of what it is, they're going for that rather than looking at their things that they need to. Like, they should actually take your course.
I don't, sister. You know something. I know a lot of wonderful people, and I know wonderful people right across the board.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of, you know, if you're sitting down with a guy
Mm-hmm.
who has done, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, and I'm talking on a professional note here.
Mm-hmm.
All I know is love and support from this brother, and I've given him love and support. And in actual, let me tell you, me and him didn't talk for about maybe 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't talk until it's only last year. There's a guy called Tony Browder, who's a lecturer from the USA.
Mm-hmm.
He's done books like the Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization and a book called From the Broader File. Tony comes over here on a regular basis,
Mm-hmm.
and Tony, you know, me and Ekendeo have actually, my friend Ekendeo, we've actually stayed at his house.
Mm-hmm.
You understand me? And we stayed with him. He knows it. He knows it. I'm saying it was he who got us back talking again.
That's good.
And the reason we didn't talk is nothing to do with him. Is that it was his love for theatre. I got angry with something,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't running away because I'm a child of Ogun. In my tradition,
Mm-hmm.
in Yoruba tradition, I'm a child of Ogun.
Mm-hmm.
And it means that I do, and I've got to say, I've got a fiery temper if it goes, but these days it don't get like that. It's like my energies have shifted.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more like the blacksmith, the transformer,
Mm-hmm.
that element of Ogun. But I say, it's really, really, you know, I like people. In fact, I sat with him today, and I said, you know something, I really like people. We were sat in this place,
Mm-hmm.
and I've just met his boss. I met, you know, some other work. Just fantastic
Mm-hmm.
people. Just, you know, as I say, I like people,
Mm-hmm.
and that tells me about my humanity as someone of African descent, as someone of European descent. Yeah, I'm biracial, mixed race, two blood, patty skin, whatever, you know, whatever names you want to call me, whatever. But I'm afraid I know a lot of stuff, but I know very little.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But all I can say, I wish these people would have the humility to go and learn some stuff,
Yeah.
and that be honest about their own agendas, about what they're looking to do.
Mm-hmm. But I think what it is as well sometimes is that I guess for some of our people, they feel very uncomfortable when someone's holding the mirror up. I guess it's like, you know, you're seeing a reflection of where you ought to be. Like, you ought to know this information. You ought to have gone and seeked it out. I mean, many people are, like I was saying, there is this shift happening. There are people who are making the effort to go a bit deeper and to read more, research more, not just online, but go and seek out books and seek out the knowledge and get themselves educated properly with correct information. So there is that going on, and I think that people, when they see that in people who've done the work, it's a very, I guess, uncomfortable reflection that you're seeing, and so you get that outburst from them because it's like they're spitting.
I would say, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because I've been teaching. Was it? I think it's 35 years now.
Mm-hmm.
33 to 35 years, something like that. Because I was a martial arts teacher, you see, like we could discover before, you know,
Yeah.
15.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I say to you is, I when you got the anger and frustration coming from black people, I do fully understand.
Mm-hmm.
What I find difficult is where you got the ones who are meant to be schooled. They're meant to be understanding. If you profess to be you're a historian, and then you hold an opinion, I'm gonna say you can hold an opinion. I hold an opinion about many things, but I'm not going to put them out unless it's in defense of something like I'm doing tonight. I understand the psychology of people. I talked extensively with people like Brother James Small, who usually when I speak with him, it takes me about 3 months to get over it, but I do speak with him.
Yeah.
Because the kind of information Brother James can drop, it's kind of mind blowing.
Yeah.
I talk with Tony Browder. You know, Tony. I always say Tony's like my big brother.
Wonderful.
And, you know, we talk on these things and we bounce information across and we do this, we do that, whatever. But you see, when I'm actually, you know, I talk to these people and then all I can say to you is the humility of them is incredible. The understanding they put across is incredible. You know, I'm going to then so I think that's the dynamic. I can say I've been shown well, I've been guided well, but I'm afraid that you're catching me on a bad night. Now what's this?
Bad night.
on Netflix.
Yes.
There's an actor called John Leguizamo. He's a Colombian descent, I think. And he's got this Netflix comedy. It's a comedy special. And it's called something like John Leguizamo. It's about Latin history for dummies, Latin history for morons. And what he's doing is dropping the history of Latin Americans, Native Americans. And I'll tell you something. I'm just sitting there going like, I am so jealous. This guy is flowing, his language, his accents. He can differentiate between the Spanish speakers and you know, that like Spanish speaker and then the Native American speakers. Oh my gosh, I've just been captivated, and it's incredible. But he sets it in a contemporary thing of his own son not knowing that history. And it's how he is going out and reading books to get the history. And then how he still messes up because he's got ghetto in him. And it's all this kind of, oh gosh.
That's fantastic.
People just watch stuff like that and be, you know, if we could just get this thing about we've got dehumanized. We need to be rehumanized. You know, and you know, it's like this. I was looking. Say for instance, when I sort of read to you about these people, the order that they started releasing this story about my friend.
Yes.
I was looking at the Daily Mail today, and I was laughing because when it was the Mail Online this morning, very early. What's there? Danny John Jules. Danny John Jules, the cat from I forgot what it was called now. It's the old science fiction comedy. Well, he's on Strictly Come Dancing. What's he done? He had a screaming and shouting fit at his partner. Yeah. And then the next one is that Meghan Markle. The Queen told Meghan Markle she will have the tiara that she's going to be given and nothing else because she wanted a different tiara. And what was the next black thing? That was all the things are just like negative things about black people.
It always is. It's always predominantly.
It was like that. But then this is the source that these people have used to start attacking them. No, sir. Not on every. No. I just.
It's just very inherent. Like I was saying before, I think they try to. What they're doing is they attempt to undermine him and reduce the good work that he's been doing.
Yeah, but it's dehumanization. It's dehumanization. That's what was done to us in slavery and colonialism.
Yeah.
And when I'm looking at those things, I spend all my time trying to give the rehumanization process. That's what I'm trying my best. That's why I did a lineage timeline. That's why I'll always question. Always seek questions. Always seek to find the information and knowledge. I do that from my heart. That's what I try my best to do. But then, But then when I find people doing the very, very same thing that has been done to us, and without even compunction, if I'm sitting down and watching a grown man crying because of the lies being told about him. And he broke down. And I've got to say this here. He broke down in my apartment yesterday, and he's saying, "P, I've never lied about that. And all I have to say was, man, I know, and I will stand testimony to you."
It's terrible.
They're accusing him of lying about his ethnicity and his background to get a job, and it's a lie, total lie. Everybody who's in the thing knows about his background, and he's there crying.
Yeah, because to be honest, I did see the article and was like, oh, really? But I didn't really look into it. I was just a bit surprised, that's all. Not just the language was being used was quite harsh as well.
Well, listen, man, all I'll say is that it is something that maybe all of us can learn from, and when we go through our things, you know, we have to stand by who and what we are.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's what I try my best to do. I tend to keep myself to myself, and I don't, you know, I don't put myself forward. I mean, for instance, I met up with a good brother down here called Dr. Les Henry. In fact, Dr. Les came to give me these gifts. There's a sister I work for in Holland, and she bought me some gifts from Egypt. So Dr. Les met me down at North Greenwich Station. He came down his motorbike. I love that brother. He speaks such straightness and whatever. And my friend was with me, and he greets him, and he's just shaking his head. Dr. Les is saying, you know, what's this thing? All the people who know of this guy in the consciousness community, they're going like, yeah, he's been bona fide some time. Everybody knows him. What's up? But then so you see, all I've got to do, what it means now, this is said to me, I've got to up my game. I've got to start getting that timeline out. I've got to get the information out there.
Definitely.
I've got to engage people wherever they are.
Absolutely.
There's one brother has been he's been putting the same thing down and saying these things about my friend. I said to this brother, I said, look, you need to read it. There's a book, Joel A. Rogers, Nature Knows No Color Line.
Yes.
These things. This is a guy who was going on about Queen Charlotte Sophia. Queen Charlotte Sophia, the Black Queen married to George III.
Yes.
That's where I first thought about her. These are the writings of Joel A. Rogers. 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro with Complete Truth.
Yes.
And here was a funny thing. What many people didn't realize is that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry married on the birthday of Charlotte Sophia.
Yes. It's
And
all
then
very planned.
When the Duchess of Kent came, when she came to meet Meghan Markle, she had a Moor's head on, and people said that she was being racist. All she was doing was acknowledging the heritage of the Moorish heritage of the royal family. How was that racist? But you see, when you got people who don't know history,
that's what. Exactly.
Yeah, they start to make misinformation, man, and that's it. And so, I've got to up my game. The brother who said this thing when I was putting forward about. Do you know, for instance? Let me tell you this one quickly. My friend's family come from his mother. His mother is from Tralee. In the west of Ireland, right? Do you know that the Moors used to take slaves from the west of Ireland?
Yes, I do.
They were up as far as Iceland, all down in Ireland, on the south coast, all the way down to Portugal and Spain.
Spain, yeah, absolutely.
Then later, it was the Barbary pirates. you've had then of course you had the Spanish Armada,
Yeah.
and they wrecked on the coast of Ireland as well.
Yeah.
There are people in Ireland. They say that there's this look where the swarthy, brown, dark, black, curly hair.
Well, it's the Irish that they call the
black men of Europe.
Yeah. I've
But
even heard them being called the white it's not nice, but they'd be called the white niggers.
That's it. But you see, what happened is, you got people down there, and that gene is in there. That's where you get the throwback.
Yeah.
I was telling people, when they say they don't like the term throwback. This brother said to me that I was wittering. I thought, witter? I very rarely do that.
Whoa.
So I was wittering about Paul Obinna's wittering online and whatever. I don't know about wittering. I very rarely witter.
It's rude.
And then what happened was, he said that we're not on a plantation. This thing about throwbacks, we're not on a plantation. I was like, to be in a plantation. The first throwback I met was a guy. He seemed to be. I think his parents were Greek or something. And in Blackburn, when I told you there were so few of us about, we used to be saying, why don't this guy hang out with us? Because he was on. They say he don't hang out. He's got no black blood. He's a throwback. I think not black blood, but no black culture.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should say. He's got no black culture. He's a throwback. And we were like, oh, So I'm like, this is back in This is about 1970. 1971. So you see, there's this whole history that's there.
Yes, definitely.
And all I ever do is give references to people. So go read a book, go find that information out. Talk to these people who are experts in that area.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've got one thing I've got coming up is December 2nd. I'm going to Holland.
Yeah.
And in Holland, in December 6th, I think it is.
Yeah.
They have St. Nicholas Day. And St. Nicholas comes out. We become St. Nicholas is like Santa Claus, Sinterklaas.
Yes.
But then they have Zwarte Piet. And Zwarte Piet is his black helper. And what happens is around that time, I can always remember when my wife, she was working in Holland. And I got this phone call from her. And she said, Obi, these white folk dressed up, blacked up, dressed with these turbans on and earrings and all this.
Yes, it's that festival. Yes.
That's it. And she was saying, she's going out, and I said, oh, that would be Zwarte Piet. She said, Zwarte, what? I said, Black Peter. She said, what the hell? And I said, no, it's their thing. They've been doing it from time.
Yeah, they have.
But you see what it is. That guy is a Moor. And they dress like Moors.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you ever watch Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, with Morgan Freeman and Kevin Costner, it's exactly the same story they tell of this guy Pete, who saved St. Nicholas from the prison. Same way that Morgan Freeman in the story saves Robin Hood.
They just totally lifted it.
But let me tell you what the madness is that I'm dealing with. You see, I said that instead of calling Zwarte Piet, calling ZP Moore.
ZP Moore, yeah.
And ZP Moore. Zwarte Piet Moore. Yeah. And taught educator and philanthropist. Because the Moors in Spain were experts at irrigation and drainage. These are the guys who were there from AD 711 until 1492 in Spain.
Yeah, because the last remaining mark for their presence there is Alhambra, isn't it, in Granada?
That's
in
right.
Spain.
That was right. That was right. Because even if you go to Seville, they got Seville Cathedral with a minaret. And they actually said they went in there about, I think it was about 1060, in the what's called the Reconquista. They reconquered Spain, took it over. The people moved straight into the Moors' apartments. They were so fine.
Yeah.
And the information and knowledge. Now, watch this. This is what I have on the timeline. You see.
Yeah.
The information, when you look back, because the European world lays claim to knowledge from Greece. The period of Greece that they claim it comes from is called Hellenistic Greece.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hellenistic Greece is directly the same period that the Greeks had taken over Kemet, and it became known as Egypt. So for round about nearly 300 years, they were in Egypt. They took knowledge from there that went to the Romans. And then later, the knowledge from the Romans was taken by the Arabs. The Arabs eventually blended with the Moors. And the Arabs and the Moors from North Africa went in via the Straits of Gibraltar, which is named for Tariq ibn Zahid.
Yes.
Gibraltar, the mountain of Tariq.
Yeah.
That went in, and what they did, they took over the Iberian Peninsula.
Yes.
They went very, very high over the time they were there, but around about 1085, AD 1085, I think it was the siege of Toledo. The Christians, the European Christians, took over Toledo, the city that's famous for steel. There were the translation schools, and that is how they got the knowledge, which then went to fuel the Renaissance, and then later the Enlightenment in Europe.
Yes.
Because remember, they were in the Dark Ages.
Yeah.
And I would say very dark, because the Moors are across Europe.
Yes. Yeah.
Part and parcel of that takeover, people from from Spain ended up going into those so-called lowlands of Holland. And that migration there, they do this thing, Zwarte Piet. I've been going on. I just say, why are you getting upset calling Zwarte Piet racist? When you look at white people dressed as black people, and you're saying it's imitation, or are they ridiculing? I say I don't care. When I look at that, to me it's an acknowledgement that they are saying we got our knowledge, we got our sense of irrigation, our drainage systems that allowed us to build Holland and keep it free from because it's low land, it's below the sea level. Every year they celebrate the Moors.
Yeah, yeah. Because that's
You see,
it's not a festival.
It's the way you look at things.
Because it's not a festival that's very well known over here. I think within our community, not a lot of people seem to talk about this festival and recognise what they're doing. I mean, it was in the papers last year about this, and there was a documentary on it.
Right. No, well, this is the thing. I think they got something on the Isle of Sheppey, where they do something similar. They do something down in Cornwall as well. Yeah. You'll see all around the country. There's the presence of Moors and Moors Head. For instance, an area of in Preston. Day before yesterday, I was with my friend. There was there's a pub there called the Blackamoor, the Blackamoor pub. And then there's an area of Blackburn, which is called Blackamoor. So all of these things, there's a history which people don't know, they don't realize. And like I said, my thing is to get these things exposed. I want people to know and be confident and competent and start to be happy, living in the present with a drive for the future by understanding the past. And from that, make a better day. Rehumanize the place instead of this craziness that's happening at the minute.
It's true. Paul, I just wanted to ask you a little bit about your in your bio, it was saying that you are developing this new consultancy called
Yeah.
Lineage Innovations Limited.
Innovations. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this?
Well, Lineage Innovations. Well, basically, this is so fun. Is that I've moved into this new apartment, and so I've been rebuilding this thing since I came back from Brazil 2 years ago. I've been working a lot on my.
I think we've just lost Paul there. While we're waiting for him to come back, because he's been telling us quite a lot of very interesting info. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Greetings, Paul.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. So I don't know what happened then.
That's okay.
But yeah. So what I was saying, I've been working a lot on myself.
Mm-hmm.
But Lineage Innovations, basically, it's about the development of tools to help that concept of lineage, of understanding your ancestry, and then hopefully working for the power of your descendants.
Mm-hmm.
So the timeline is part of it. That forms the 9,000 years. I've got another timeline that's 2.5 million years long.
Okay.
I have another one that's 25 million years long.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got one that looks at geology at 850 million years long.
Okay. Wow.
And then when we look in terms of those long durations of time, we realize that really our 70 years and 10 or whatever it is supposed to get is really not that much information to actually have to look at.
Mm-hmm.
I also do a thing called a lifeline, and the lifeline is looking at our own period of history that we came into play. And then there's a thing called a life cycle, which is the promotion of states. So, for instance, my next birthday, I'm 60. At 61, I become what's called a senior elder. At the minute now, I'm a junior elder.
Mm-hmm.
So you go through from your birth, you go 12 years, and then the 13th year of transition, where we're supposed to be getting ready to become adults. At 20, you have 12. At 25 years old, become junior adult. 37, senior adult. At 49, junior elder. 61, senior elder. At 84, a wise elder.
Okay.
And then from that point, it's like we're supposed to be improving ourselves all the way through our life. Our physical, maintain physically. Like I'm in a lot of pain recently, through injuries and stress and whatever through the past. But I've got to improve myself, keep improving myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Mind, body, and spirit. Just keep
That's
developing. Because you never stop learning, really. And I think there's always the
That's
evolution of the human spirit. And
That's
like
it.
the soul, you can always move forward within yourself and become a true version of who you are supposed to be, and more in line with who you are, really.
Well, that's what Lineage Innovations is. That's what that's about, is to improve.
Fantastic.
Keep the improvement going of the human condition and become the best that we can be, and keep it going. Different phases and stages of our lives.
Absolutely.
So that's basically the principle that I've been working with my friend on. We've been working together, and it's about making that improvement. So I've got several people that I mentor. I've got some that I coach, and that. My main thing at the consultancy, I love doing standing up, and I love to do stand up and do deliveries and lectures and whatever. But my main thing in reality is about coaching people to become the best they can be. This is what I call an Agenda A and Agenda B. Agenda A is the professional. Agenda B is personal. Agenda C is the healing that needs to be done on Agenda B and maybe on Agenda A.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. And if somebody wants to how to go to do any of these, come to you and actually look at like personal awareness and to develop themselves, how do they find you? Or if they want to get one of those lineage, the timelines that you do.
Well, the lineage. I repeat the email I gave you before. It's lineage innovations at gmail.com. But then if they want to do if they're interested in the coaching and consultancy that way, it's Paul MA, and it's Paul and then EME Echo Mother Echo 360 at gmail.com.
Can you just repeat that one more time, please?
That's Paul MA. That's PAUL EME. That's Echo Mother Echo 360 at gmail.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Paul. We've run quite over here.
Sorry.
A bit. No, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much.
For people's listening, I apologise for the if I appeared quite hot. It's just that the issues with my friend are wider issues as well. It's a thing that seems to be going on now with the way I'm looking at young people. You see, when I started teaching, we had Gunchester in Manchester, and there's this thing of shootings. We've got a bad reputation. All these things are going on. Now, coming down, there's children dropping every day, or several times a week. We're stabbing each other and all of this business.
Well, I think it's really important to keep that awareness in the minds of our community and the people, other communities that listen in, and actually start to develop the tools, or go to people who have the tools that we can become more in tune and actually start to work together more coherently to have a better output and a more far-reaching example. Because I think when the youths actually see us operating like this, it's going to start to make them question their own behaviours, especially if they start to see how far from what the cultural expectations and social rules are traditionally, that people are actually practicing them, and they see that in other communities, but now start to see it more across the board within our own community. I think it will start the ripple of change.
Well, we say God willing.
Yes.
But it is like I say. I don't differentiate. You see, I don't. Just because somebody speaks something, it doesn't mean to say it's not violent. It doesn't mean to say it's not intended to hurt and make and harm. I've come across like last time I was in Garth prison. I had very few guys in my group because they had to shut down the corridors because a guy killed himself that morning. And so these things, sticks and stones, might hurt my body. No, man. It's that when you start to be horrible to people, and especially when it's unfounded.
Yes.
And when you're accusing somebody of something they've not done, you need to really be checking this thing once, twice, three times, and whatever. It's not good. And then the next minute, those same people will be turning around and wondering why it is that boy just stabbed that boy to death. When they're carrying out, watch this, character assassination.
Absolutely. Because being accused of something that you haven't done is one of the worst things that a person can do, because it's, that you're innocent and you haven't done anything, and then these people are spiritually or physically attacking you over something that's in their imagination in order to justify their own behavior towards you.
could I finish by just telling you this is an Igbo tale? I was
Yes.
told.
Oh, yes, please.
What happened was they say that there was a man came to because you know you have the town, you have the towns, and then you have the villages.
Yes.
And what happened was with
Oh, I think we've just lost a connection there. I'm hoping that Paul can get back through to us so that he can finish telling us this Igbo story, because it sounded quite interesting. Until then, I will play you a track by Joy Mac, and it's called Oh, here we are. I'll play you that track after this. One moment. Here we go. Hi, Paul.
Yes, I'm
Hi.
so sorry.
No, don't worry. That's okay.
It was
So
a fault. It was a fault with the with my headphones.
no worries. So you were telling us about this story. Yes, this tale.
They tell a tale of a man who he came to live in a new town, and he came from another town. He came there, and then there was a local man who was very jealous because this guy was very handsome, articulate. He he was a very kind person, and so this guy he felt displaced, and so he was very, very jealous. So what he did, he went to the town man had come from to find information, to dig dirt, to try and find things that he could assassinate his character with. And so he talked to these two guys and found information, and so then he came back to the town, to his own town, and started spreading these rumors about the new man. Yeah. After a few days, everything came to light that the two men he'd asked were two criminals whom this man had put in check, and so they were spreading bad rumors about him. This man, the man who'd gone to find the information, then felt guilty at what he'd done.
Of course.
A saving grace. So what he did, he went back to his village, and he went to one of the village elders. And he said, "Elder, I've said this thing about this man. I found out everything I've been saying was not true. What can I do about it?" So the village elder said, "You know of our traditions of sacrificing animals." So he says, "What I want you to do is buy 2 chickens. I want you to go to the town tomorrow. I want you to sacrifice the chickens. And as you know, I want you to pluck the chickens and then have them cooked. And as we do, we share the meat among the poor of the town." And he said, "Yes, then what, sir?" He said, "I want you to get the bag of feathers that have been plucked. And what I want you to do is, on your way back to the village from the town, I want you to drop the feathers every 4 paces." So he said, "Okay." And then he said, "Come and see me tomorrow." So the man, he went, he got the 2 chickens, took them to the town, he killed the chickens, plucked the feathers, put them in bags, had the chicken cooked, then spread the chicken meat out among the poor, spread out there the goodwill. Then he had the bag of feathers, and he made his way back to the village, quite a long walk, dropping a feather every four step. And he went to see the elder, and the elder said, "Have you done everything?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Come and see me in the morning." And so the man got up in the morning bright and early. He went to the elder. He says, "Elder, I'm here." And the elder said, "Right, what I want you to do, get the bag." He said, "Yeah, go and pick up the feathers." And he could find 6. All the rest had done what? Blown away, been trampled under the dirt and whatever. And he brought the 6 feathers back to the elder, and he said, said, Elder, I could only find 6. And the elder said, exactly. Once you spread rumor and gossip, you can't gather it back.
Exactly. It's a very good moral story.
So that's what I say. So sometimes we need to be guarded what we say and what we do.
It's true. It's very true. And absolutely. What we say and how we say it to people as well. Very, very important. But Paul, we are 49 minutes over my the schedule, but it has been absolutely wonderful talking to you. Thank you for sharing so much information and actually giving us also the links to where we can find your timelines and also have that have any consultation with you or people who just genuinely want to ask Paul questions. He gave out the email. Can you just say it again for those who are just catching the end of the show, the email?
Yeah, for the timelines, it's lineageinnovations@gmail.com. And then for anything to do with consultation or lectures, arranging lectures or whatever, it would be Paul M.A. That's PAULMAEME, Echo Mother Echo, 360@gmail.com. That's Paul M.A. 360@gmail.com.
Thank you very much, Paul. So
absolutely my pleasure.
Oh, thank you. And give thanks. Have a wonderful evening. And I hope to hear you again on the Sista Lel show on Bless Radio.
Okay, then. Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Stay blessed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless. You. God bless.
You too. Thank you. So that was the wonderful Paul that we just interviewed and spoke to for the past couple of hours, and he shared with us some very wonderful content. Because we've run over time, I'm going to play a last track out I've changed the track. It's Maccabee and it's called Be Yourself. I would like to say give thanks to everybody who's lent us their ear for the past couple of hours. And please, those who want to talk to Paul, please refer back to the show, and you can find it on YouTube on Bless Radio 1. And you can get the information there. So have a blessed weekend and a wonderful week ahead. Give thanks to everyone who listened. See you this time next week on the Sista Lel show, Bless Radio, www.blessradio.org. Good night, everyone.
I and I is I, and I will always be I. No matter how the system try. Be yourself. Don't let the system mold you. Be yourself. Don't let the system control you. Be yourself. Don't let the system.
This one's going out to Junior at Coffee Nubia in Manchester, and also Yembi and Yemani up there in Manchester. Blessed love.
I. Said don't let the system mold you. Said don't let the system control you. Said don't let it take away your energy. Try keep your individuality. Said don't let the system use you. Don't let the system abuse you. Don't let it control your liberty. Be yourself to the best of your ability. Don't dig it down, yo. Follow you, not follow them. Before you know it, then you're turning in a one of them. You're bowing down to the pounds and the dollar them. Just be true to your words and try to honor them. Don't dig it down, follow you, not follow them. Before you know it, then you're turning in a one of them. You're bowing down to the pounds and the dollar them. Just be true to your words and try to honor them. Yo, be careful of the entity that's trying to sap your energy. trying to take your inner strength and your originality, stopping you from trying to be the way that you're supposed to be, fighting against freedom and your individuality. Use up your mentality when shaping your reality. It's not about the quantity of life, it is the quality. If your mind is truly free, you be who you want to be, then you will see. Yeah, follow you, not follow them. Before you know it, then you're turning in a one of them. You're bowing down to the pounds and the dollar them. Just be true to your words and try to honor them. Yeah, me say follow you, not follow them. Before you know it, then you're turning in a one of them. You're bowing down to the pounds and the dollar them. Just be true to your words and try to honor them. Down, down. No matter what they want to do, ain't no matter what they want to say. Hey, I'm never gonna let them take my soul away, no way. Never gonna get caught up in the games they play. According to your work, I saw you getting your pay. Say now you're nice, I am nice, say come and watch me. I'm giving thanks for life, I miss her each and every day. When I go let the system lead I astray. Hear where me say, yeah, follow you, not follow them. Before you know it, then you're turning in a one of them. You're bowing down to the pounds and the dollar them. Just be true to your words and try to honor them. Down, down, follow you, not follow them. Before you know it, then you're turning in a one of them. You're bowing down to the pounds and the dollar them. Just be true to your words and try to follow them. Miss if they put up resistance, you know it takes strength and it's taking persistence. Spiritual beings having a human existence. Know me and no sprint and me come for the distance. Asking Rastafari for some assistance. Some of them no business, them say them no response. Some of them will sell all them soul for your sixpence. Just be yourself cause you are the difference. Yeah, follow you, not follow them. Before you know it, then you're turning in a one of them. You're bowing down to the pounds and the dollar them. Just be true to your words and try to